Hey everybody, my name is Daryl and this is Dion.
Hello.
And welcome to DuoQ. In today's video, we're discussing the importance of video game soundtracks. Now that we're queued up and ready to go, let's get started.
Let's first talk about some of the memorable game soundtracks that we have been a part of or lucky enough to hear. There are many notable video game soundtracks, and just to name a few, Daryl, why don't you share with us?
So off the top of my head, obviously I have to put Final Fantasy XIV out there. It's a Final Fantasy game. Square Enix is known, well, they're known for a lot of things, including taking too damn long, but they're also known for having really, really good soundtracks. It doesn't matter which Final Fantasy you play. You know, most Final Fantasy fans will tell you, hey, don't play that one, that sucks. Play this one. Don't play that one, that sucks. Play this one. But if there's one thing they can all agree on, it's the music is always a banger. And 14 is no different. And that could be said about Kingdom Hearts as well. The soundtracks the soundtrack for Final Fantasy, for Kingdom Hearts, which I guess if I call it Final Fantasy, it wouldn't be too far off the mark, but still. Kingdom Hearts also has a phenomenal soundtrack. Shadow of the Colossus and Silent Hill for me kind of share that very ambient but very emotional. Not that Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy XIV don't, but they bring out different emotions with how somber they are. Shadow of the Colossus is often very quiet to really emphasize how alone you are, but when you're fighting the Colossi, they let you know that, yeah, this is a big deal what you're doing right now. While Silent Hill kind of leans more on the spooky post-rock side of things, which is really entertaining. And then you have games like Nier Automata and Persona. Nier Automata and Persona 5 specifically, both were butting heads for best soundtrack of 2017 at the time for me. And I think thematically, Nier Automata beat it for me. But in terms of what I can listen to, that's just a jam, that would be Persona 5. But I put Persona on the list in general, so most Persona games tend to hit that vibe for me. You never see it coming. You see that my mind is the best for rise. You're done but the time is hit you, you're not surprised. It's not a game, I'm not a robot, and I challenge you. I'm not a phantom, I'm in your face and I'm here to see it through. Right before your eyes. What about you, Dion?
Well, I had to mention Mario and Zelda. I mean, you know, the great parts of Mario and Zelda, the music is memorable and everyone thinks about that music, and people outside of the game know that music. So that's what's very popular about those.
Jump up in the air. Jump up, don't be scared. Jump up and your cares will soar away. And if the dark clouds start to swirl, don't fear and shed a tear, 'cause I'll be your one-up girl.
Skyrim.
It's iconic.
Exactly. Skyrim, amazing. Intro music. Just gets you, every time you hear it, you know it's Skyrim. And I think that's really important. And that kind of just shows how it is big in the industry. Iconic, as you say. Kingdom Hearts. I remember as a kid just hearing the Kingdom Hearts songs. You know, it was super big for me. I always remember the songs. I wasn't a person that listened outside of the game, but if I heard that music, I would remember it. I would know it. And then Halo, of course. Halo throughout its whole series is super memorable. There's nothing else to say about it. It's such a good soundtrack all the way throughout. And, you know, there's one that everyone knows. And then there's a few other songs in there, though, that fit the vibe of the game, fit the vibe of the whole series, and just, you continue to hear it. You know it.
Some of Halo's tracks, you can literally just, hey, I'm gonna turn on your Xbox. I almost said PlayStation, and I would have gotten crucified for it. Some of Halo's tracks, you can literally just turn on your Xbox, turn off your TV or monitor or whatever you're playing it on, and just listen. And you put those headphones on someone, they'll be like, you don't have to put those on my head. I know this is Halo. The very first note, it's Halo.
Exactly.
Everyone knows that.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about how soundtracks are in games.
The soundtrack's main focus is to amplify the gaming experience, and a fitting soundtrack can really wrap a game into a more memorable package or series than it may already be on its own. So let's talk about a few ways that soundtracks can be very important to the game besides filling an empty space. If you want to leave that part, Dion.
So the soundtrack lets you be more immersed into that experience. It can set moods. It can push you towards action or signal a change of pace. It can get you excited. It can get you sad. It can get you scared. I mean, music throughout the game is always going to be, you know, a huge part in how you should feel or signal to you what your reaction should be. And you can even see this in so many different forms of media. And it doesn't go away in games. It's to continue the same thing.
Yeah.
It can also serve as a way to relax the player between intense sections of the game. That music can kind of serve as just a break or a transition through a different piece of a game. You're transitioning to something else. That music, that soundtrack that they're using can help that transition, because, you know, that soundtrack can vary. It can be, you know, loud, very rock music, and be soft background music, and that is kind of, you know, one of the secrets to the soundtracks in the game. And then it's a companion during your playthrough. You know, when you're playing through it, especially for me, I don't know if I really pay attention to the music by itself necessarily, unless it's like really super iconic, like maybe a Halo or a Final Fantasy series as well. For me, it's more like it just kind of wraps that package together and it really puts you through the experience and makes it kind of just like a companion, someone you're walking through, that's walking you through what the game has to offer.
Yeah, I actually really like that comparison of it being a companion to your journey. So essentially, I want to say that To add on to everything that Dion just said, I believe it also kind of, in a weird way, tells you what you're about to get into and reminds you of what you've been through. And I mean that in the sense of games that tend to have very specific tracks that relate to, say, a battle or a boss fight and whatnot. So like in JRPGs, you'll often get into random encounters and whatnot, and you'll play the same battle track over and over and over again, but you start to relate that soundtrack to that kind of fight. So when things change, when you get to the boss fight, you're so used to like Last Surprise and Persona and whatnot playing in the background, but then when you get to the boss fight and it hits you with a whole other theme, you're like, oh shit, it's about to get real.
It's about to go
like,
down.
Yep, it's a great feeling. And on another note that just came to mind, another game that just came to mind, Haunting Ground. In Haunting Ground, a lot of the stalker enemies or chaser enemies in that game have their own themes for their areas and motifs. And what's fun is to occasionally go onto YouTube and just search up those themes. And I recommend you do this with any soundtrack. And just read the comments, and everyone essentially has the same mindset you do. Like there's one enemy in particular in Haunting Ground who every time I hear his theme, it fills me with anxiety because it's constantly building and it's very subtly getting faster. It's like dun 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 dun, and it's going up in half steps in increments, and I'm just like, I can't stand this. It's more scary than he actually is. What are those? And all you can see in like comments and whatnot is people saying, nope, I remember this. Nope, 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 nope. It's that kind of feeling that you would get from a soundtrack that I really appreciate. That can extend from just the game to outside the game. Speaking of outside of the game, how do we think that soundtracks affect us on the outside, like outside of the video game, outside of the realm of games and whatnot? If you want to go into that first, Dion.
Right. So outside of a game, you know, soundtracks are kind of still live as its own album, so to speak, right? So you still have that music with you. So in series of games, that's one way it lives outside of just the one game. We've kind of hinted at that when we're talking about series, but Final Fantasy, that music kind of, there's a few tunes that extend past just one game that makes it like the prelude that go right through each game. And that is living outside of that one game. It's just living throughout the series. Halo does exactly the same thing, especially the intro music. Mm-hmm. Can't live without it. It is in every Halo game, at least the first three. I'm not 100% sure about every single one.
No, it's in the others too. It's in 4, and I want to assume it's in 5, but 5 is so weird. I didn't even play it myself, and I'm like, I don't know. I've heard too many weird things about that. I'm
sure it'll be in Infinite. So,
oh, no doubt.
I'm seeing it coming in. Mario and Zelda, the games almost don't exist without those themes. So you have it in that series as well. It always carries through.
Can you imagine a Mario game without music? Without the Mario music?
No. You can't. It literally cannot exist. And that is, you know, and that's what's so key about it living outside of the game and the series. Now, outside of just being in a series of games, because we're kind of cheating, right? Because it's still a game. Right. Let's talk about orchestra concerts. This is a big thing that Square Enix does often, where they tour with an orchestra and they play the music. They play the different music. I think Halo actually did this as well. But they play just really for iconic stuff. But, you know, this music has fans. People are paying to see, you know, the sounds of these games.
Soken, the main composer for Final Fantasy 14, him and his band perform almost, I think that was like I forgot what the summer event is called, but the summer event that essentially comes just before a major expansion at sometimes, or like major updates. I can't remember what it is.
Summer Festival, I think.
Yes, the Summer Festival. His band would occasionally play those tracks, and the same group that plays them for the game. really surreal to see that happen, and I really wish I was there sometimes, but I'm not going all the way out there for that. I'm good, thanks.
So that's just another way it lives outside of the game. And then non-gamers' familiarity with certain soundtracks, I think, is a huge clue that these soundtracks live outside. Appearance in other media. You can have some of these soundtracks appear in other media. Mario, I think, is probably the most famous.
Yeah.
Commercials a lot, or and other things. People just know the Mario soundtrack, regardless if they're gamers or not. And some of these, these games and these songs become part of pop culture. And I would say Mario is there. I would say Zelda's probably almost there. Where anyone knows them. And like you said, someone hears just the beginning and they know exactly what it is. Usually don't hear that except for popular music. And what is gaming music? It's become, some of those soundtracks are popular. So it just has a life of its own outside of the game.
And some people will go so far as to say, if you're making a chiptune track or whatever and whatnot, that they'll kind of associate it. If it sounds similar enough, I've heard people associate some chiptune tracks with Mario, like this sounds like Mario music. Or if you play it on a piano, it just sounds like Megalovania, and next thing you know, you're getting Undertale memes. Another game with a fantastic soundtrack, but household names, or at least games that push beyond just gamers, like Dion said. But then you also have cases where this is a more rare case, I would assume, not assume, but I would say, in my opinion, it's a more rare case where sometimes songs created by fans end up in the games that you play. And this is the case with the Project Diva series from the Project Diva Vocaloid series, where they pick from well-known producers and whatnot. But if one track made by whomever online gets enough steam and whatnot, they'll look at it and they might put it in there. You never know. It's one of those more unique ways of getting people involved with the music of your game. But again, Project Diva is a rhythm game series, so it's kind of expected there, but they don't have to do that. So I just think that's cool.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, not necessarily picking fan music, but GTA takes real music from. I shouldn't say real music. It takes music from.
What's that supposed to mean? What you talking about, Dion?
It takes music from other producers and music that we're listening to every day, pop music and rap, all that different stuff, hip hop. You can get that music as well in a video game, which is
Tony
still
Hawk
outside.
Does it all the time? Yeah.
Tony Hawk still does it. Yep.
Heck, a lot of sports games do it.
Yep. That last
some even produced. Some even produced by them. I can't remember. No, I'm not even gonna throw that out there because I might be wrong. I was thinking of if Kanye or Jay-Z.
Jay-Z did NBA 2K.
Yeah.
And I could sing the song, but I will not in 2K14. So there's just a lot of instances where songs that are not made just for games are used. And I think that is throughout media as well. So, to give our final thoughts on this, video game soundtracks have been able to establish an importance and popularity within and outside of games. There are many memorable soundtracks that even entered pop culture and remain iconic even now. And I'm not a person that usually listens to the music after the game, right? I'm not a person that's going to have a soundtrack laying around like Daryl is.
Yeah.
Or listen to it in my free time. But if I hear the music, I can remember it. Or it can affect me in multiple ways and make me really excited. Kingdom Hearts did that for me. Of course, Halo, Mario, Zelda. Those I hear, I know them. I'm super excited to hear them. And they really just have their life of their own. So even though I'm not a person that listens outside of the game, I must admit that the impact is real, and many people enjoy and love what they add to the industry and love listening to those soundtracks.
And in my case, music has the ability to move us in more ways than one, and video games are no exception to that rule. My playlist, as Dion has alluded to, is full of all sorts of music, and video games. Yeah, video game music is in my playlist as well. I was gonna say soundtrack, but I guess you could say the soundtrack to games are also the soundtrack to my life. Haha, puns, jokes. I'm hilarious. I'm here every Thursday. Soundtracks and the music of games are always a thing I look forward to whenever I play a game, and it's one of the first things I look for. And I don't think that's going to be stopping anytime soon.
Alrighty, I think that's all we got for now. Thank you all for stopping through to listen here at DuoQ. Don't forget to comment, share, and leave a like. Tell us how you feel about video game music and how important it was in your life, or what you've heard and you like to listen to on a regular basis. I would love to hear it. Next time you're waiting for a party or searching for a lobby, feel free to tune in again while you wait. See ya!
There, guys. And before you go, I have one more question. Do you know Lahi?